Thank you for staying with us, Jake. Welcome to Seattle Data and Security.
Thank you so much for having me here.
I have a lot of questions for you today, but we'll stick to just two of them in terms of because we're at time. You are the CISO of the City of Seattle.
Yes.
I live in Seattle and I care about the security of Seattle. So my first question to you is, what is the biggest security air threat that we have in this era? As a representative of the City of Seattle, what do you foresee?
Right. So, big question, and big questions come with some big answers too, right?
Right.
And with AI security in particular, in the 17th largest city in the nation, and the acceleration of AI use and availability. So we have access and availability to AI and agentic systems that are now ubiquitous, right?
Right.
To employees, critical services. So in terms of how we look at threats, how we view those threats, where are the threat landscapes even shifting with AI? It's hard to give you a 1 or 2 and 3 parity, though we clearly look at critical infrastructure first. Right? Critical infrastructure, the data privacy of all of our residents that we have, 817,000 residents, which is also 817,000 reasons why we show up to do what we do every day. Residential data protection is critical for us. So if you're a resident of the city, also I am too, then our data must be protected and safeguarded by the government of which we show up to serve you with, right? That is our mission, that is our value, that's what we do. Data privacy is critical. Another one, and I'll say right into number 1 as well, is critical infrastructure. And what do I mean by that? This is city lighting, Seattle Public Utilities, Seattle Department of Transportation, right? To keep the city running operationally and effectively, we need to secure these systems, and no one or any system is immune to that. So we take a deep look within our critical inventory of system management and also residential data within all our applications and our architectures. It gets super, complex between there and then, but high level overview, what we really look at is protecting the data of all the residents that we serve and maintaining civic functions that remain online from these AI cyber threats that occur in the industry that we see today.
Okay. So what are the signals that you look for before something becomes an incident?
Yeah, so this is where AI changed the game a bit, right?
Yeah.
Signal to noise ratio. And, we still live quasi in a luxury atmosphere where IOCs are indicators of compromises and hashes, and we use security tools to correspond and correlate these signals in order to effectively remediate, recover, and mitigate these threats for, future exploitation. Though with AI, we may not have that luxury in the future. And so what do we look for? So without exposing, obviously, the tools that we use and our processes, it's humans first.
Correct.
And it's upskilling our security operations staff, our operational technology security staff that work hard in, hard out every single day in Seattle Public Utilities, City Light, and Department of Transportation, so that they see exactly what we see in the industry, because now the signals are moving. Between agentic and even non-agentic AI-enabled models that are within environments and attempt to subvert firewall behavior. So humans first, and humans in the lead is clearly core to our ethos in the city. Though how we apply it by first is upskilling our employees. Let's get them that training. Let's get them the resources so they can find that within their existing security tools, because we may not have the luxury tomorrow of finding IOCs when we're talking of 0 days or AI agentic threats running local into machines and production environments. So humans are always going to be first in that equation of upskilling, training, and getting ahead of what that future impending mitigation threat would be. So we take that approach first, because where our primary investments reside.
Yeah, absolutely. Human is absolutely important for everything we do. So what is your usual MTTD? What's mean time to detect something before it becomes an incident as of today?
Well, clearly want that number as low as possible. So everybody, if you're asking any CISO, right, we want to say MTTD to be 0. But let's put reality.
I'm just trying to see if something is happening, when will Jay come to know about it, right?
Correct. And by the way, there's multiple life cycles of MTTD, right? So we have mean time to detect, mean time to respond, mean time to recover.
Resolve and recover.
Yep. And in that life cycle, we also can apply, potentially in our future operations, AI to assist us. We heard today, this morning, from Microsoft and many other speakers, which I completely concur with, the future rise of AI threats will require AI agentic solutions to mitigate those threats. We are no different, we are not immune, and we will absolutely prioritize those investments in addition to the parity value of investing in our people first. So what is the mean time to detect? Will it change? Of course it will change. Will we have machines in the loop and humans in the lead and oversight of that connection? 100% we will. And so my actual equation will go with what is the theta or t minus delta for mean time to recover. I want to know my recovery objectives, and quickly when you answer that question, what comes to mind is, are our business continuity and disaster recovery plans effective and efficient to deliver all of those recovery time point objectives to maintain that detection requirement that we want? And that's a hard one.
Yeah,
right?
that's a hard one.
So our plans and policies, our programs are shifting to align to that mean time to recover output, along with our BCDR, business continuity disaster recovery plan, so that we focus right within those point in time objectives. But clearly we want mean time to detect to be nanoseconds, not minutes.
Right.
Can't promise that.
Yeah.
But that would clearly be the goal, and AI security agentic solutions to enable us to get there can do that. And it does require security tooling, orchestration, and platform integration. And those two have to be prioritized in embedded systems within any critical infrastructure or enterprise organization.
Absolutely. And how do you make sure that you don't get a lot of false positives or false negatives?
No.
Because that's very, very normal, right?
Filtering, more
Yeah.
filtering to the filtering.
Yeah.
QA tools are critical, right? So it's easy to throw AI at everything. AI doesn't solve that problem right now, even though I believe that it will in our future, especially within deep learning or reinforcement learning modules. So how are we getting rid of false positives? Well, we'll never be able to effectively mitigate false positive text, so we'll always have that simple verification and validation loop. Where is the loop embedded near to the remediation stakeholder, which is changing in procedures and scale? We're seeing that in global enterprise, large enterprise, even SMB high growth companies now in industry. And we look at that from the city because guess what our partner vendors are, right? Our OEMs, our suppliers. They are feeling the same pains that we are, and how to navigate, how do you move and where do you move? And in addition to where, what are you moving in your process, and what's the big one, right? Changing your procedures to move validation and verification of a false positive as closer to you can to that system remediation stakeholder. So we're even noticing this across the city between centralized vuln management structures to now decentralized or distributed vuln management structures. I believe AI can help us get there, but moving that closer to who's actually reconfiguring the system or the asset to close that vulnerability. The closer you move that to the edge of your stakeholders, your processes ultimately lower that MTTD value rate.
Absolutely. Since you're very close to quantum computing, at least quantum computing, this is not just related to security. I want to understand how the world will look like in the future when quantum computers become like personal computers. It's going to be another transformational era in our day-to-day lives. So computing is going to be massive, and it's at a scale that we cannot even imagine. So how do you think the world will be?
That's a big question.
I'm curious, not just a interviewer. I wanted to know because you're the first person who I know who actually was in quantum computing.
So I'll address it from that viewpoint within what will the future give us a taste to observe. And clearly this is a hypothesis, but I do submit we will have quantum processors that become not only embedded in centralized cloud security providers, but possibly decentralized with ease of access, the availability of quantum process access. Well, what does that look like, the security side? And they didn't ask that, but I have to answer it from the mitigation of the harvest now decrypt later threat vector, right? That our data ultimately will become nearly unbreakable with quantum algorithms that are deployed. And when we have inferences and qubits that are processed high enough, to a degree even low enough, to protect our data in lattice-based cryptography, we may have a minimization, which is my hope, my dream, where hackers now know that it's not worth their investment of time to attempt to either brute force or exploit or compromise data at rest and transit, because it will be virtually, I can't say impossible, but virtually improbable to do that even with quantum processors that exist using these quantum resistant algorithms. So what do I see is a cut down on scams, a cut down on phishing, minimization now that we have agentic AI security with quantum algorithms protecting your data. That's the world that I show up every day to do my best to build and bring forward. That we cut down on this. Now, there's multiple impacts to it, right? On where the cyber insurance industry will shift, where regulatory landscapes will shift as well to maintain somewhat of a relationship with our insurance broker and underwriting market. But mainly, I still go back to, if we are to reduce and minimize even the access of threat vectors and risk actors or threat actors and advanced persistent threat actors from exploiting data, now that that data has been quantumly encrypted, why go after it? Right? The handshakes, the network, why go after it? Because now we have fully quantum resistant architectures and infra.
Yeah.
So that's the world I would like to see.
Wow, the future looks bright. Thank
It
you.
does.
Yeah.
It does. We have to have that hope, right? It does.
Yeah.
And we're doing our part in the city, obviously, and partnering with other cities, right? And GovAI coalitions,
Okay.
with advancing that feature as best we can. From the coalition of city CISOs, from metro areas, but the city of Seattle maintains a very predominant position in having a quantum rich and quantum ready future.
Wow. I just feel more safe just by talking to you. I feel like I'm in a very safe city now. Thank you, Jake. Nice meeting you.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much.